Well, my name's Josh. This is Demo Time. Thank you for coming to Demo Time. I see some familiar faces. Thank you, thank you. I see some familiar faces at this point. Most of you probably see me as a familiar face. One of the things that I love about Tech Alley is it seems like it's the nicest group of people that come out, and I see familiar faces. We know each other. That's really cool. I got some soda and popcorn to help support the local venue here. Thanks for having us. And also because I'm nervous, because, well, I've given a lot of presentations before. I think this is me presenting the most interesting thing I've done, and it's all happened largely in the last 10 days. So what you're about to see is an evolution of me going and looking at a terminal, not unlike this one, and then pressing 2 and 1, a whole bunch, to test and see. I'm hearing a laugh. For some people who are familiar with vibe coding, this is known as want and disregard, and so you want them to take over, and the answer is, we'll find out, because I'm a push the button type of a guy. So as I was there, so for those that don't know, I am an all-in-one wonder stack engineer that can go from the power supply in the motherboard to the server, OS, network, everything all the way to user full stack. There's a lot of people better at me at parts of that, but because I've been doing this from the Oregon Trail generation, as they're referred, I'm an elder millennial, my tech stack involves understanding the hardware at a pretty interesting level. So I was benchmarking my SQL databases back in the early 2010s. And at the time, it gave me an edge at selling marketing lists because I could pull data from a database cheaper and faster than anyone else. So I could sell for less than their hard costs were. And they got very upset. And I bought an Aston Martin. And that made my ex-wife very upset. You get the idea. Okay, so here's what I was sitting there, and I was saying, well, it's fun to just let it keep coding. When I press 1 and 2, what it means is Cloud Code is just saying like, oh, can I put this in the keyboard? Can I have this command? You want to let me have access to this? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure, you can touch everything in here. We're seeing what you can do. And I got all the way to this right here, which I'm going to do a refresh on, and Lord willing, a QR code will appear or some other horrible bug. This is a live vibe code to deploy pipeline. So, a while back I was buying domains. I have this domain, NEWBX, Newbex. I don't know what to do with this. It's like, I got a good deal on it. I like 5-letter domains. And it sort of sat there on the shelf. Now there's another domain we have, GBuff. Now Brendan here is a fan of GBuff. It's a server that's been making us a bunch of money. It's really cool. On the internet it's known as gbuff.com. And that is where I gave Brendan keys to a server to play with. And he has complete control, because otherwise I was the bottleneck. And I'm a project manager, not a project doer. So if he has everything he needs and I can't be the bottleneck, it either gets done or it's on him. So I said, what if I gave robots a little bit of access to a live deployment on my environment that I manage, where I can contain it, make sure it's not going to be an infinite loop so it'll break anything. If it gets dirty, I can kill it. But what if it works? What if I've been hiding from saying yes and no repetitively until I just find that my life is just pressing 1 and 2? Well, I made this thing. And so my starting thought was, so if you're ever vibe coding, and by the way, I hate this term very, very much. I've resisted a lot, but it's the term, it's what it is. I can hate it if I want. I hated hoodie for sweatshirt. I can hate this for a while. Whatever we call it, it's incredible. So what I did is I sat there and I said, I'm just gonna plan shit. And I'm gonna discuss what I want and see how close I can get. And let's just, horseshoes and hand grenades, we're in a padded room right now. I'm just going to throw caution to the wind and hit yes, enter, please, yes, access granted in its sandbox. And quickly this became a fun little project that then turned into something else, all in the course of about 10 days. So there's a menu here. You got a few things you can do, like an explore. I didn't code any of that, by the way. I just said, make it go like a wormhole. And sort of the initial one that I liked, is the idea of this sort of stargazing. Sort of like we're just on this cruise liner, and it was kind of a nightmare because Claude Code actually does not understand stuff OpenAI, ChatGPT understands very intuitively. So in order to achieve this feeling of see the stars in the distance and there's something nearby and we're sort of moving along, by the way, every time we reload it, it gives you a different experience. So for example, every time we do this reload, it's making some local guess, and the experience that you're getting is unique to you and your machine. If you keep hitting refresh, you may see something similar. I haven't seen one like this before with the nebula at the top and the nebula bottom where it's spinning like this. So to get Claude to understand this very premise of loading this to the server and choosing Three.js and getting the right permissions and all of the everything, that was the easiest part on a lot of this stuff, which I would have thought would have been hard. Getting it to do this, as you'll notice, so this is that same screen we were at before. It's got a different configuration, but there's stars in the back drifting. I had to explain this to Claude 100 different ways. I said, no, no, no. Imagine there's a camera tied to a car and it's looking out the window and it's that view. And it was doing like the camera angle of this. And like a glitching out like security cam that's stationary. And I'm like, no, it's traveling through space. I went back and forth probably no less than 7 to 12 times. It became a Moby Dick problem where the outcome of this, I'm just testing a theory, my goodness. How could this possibly be worth this? But what I found was when I explained this concept to OpenAI and the ChatGPT model, and I said, I'm trying to explain this to Claude, and it was like, fucking Claude. And I'm like, well, can you put it in code for me? And then it did. And I said, here's what I mean. And then Claude figured out how to do this sort of line here. So then I said, you know what? All right, this is kind of neat. We made some different menus. There's an arcade. So now it's got an example. You can actually go through and you can shoot things. There's obstacle courses. Bear in mind, along the way, I've probably done 10 revisions of this, and each revision is basically starts, okay, look at everything that we have here. Does everything work? And also, here's some things that I want, and then also, where do you think we should go from here? And I can do like 3 to 5 prompts back and forth on that level of detail and move what seems like 3 and 9 iterations and versions prior. And so part of why I'm doing this presentation is if you're playing with any of these things or these vibe coding tools, this is using Claude Code. Cursor is pretty good. I don't like it as much lately because it's not as good at the infra stuff that I've been dealing with. However, these language models have gotten to the point where, like, if you want to just talk to it and build something, this iteration process is pretty cool. Now, I got spoiled because I'm playing on my own network. I've been hosting websites with databases for probably 15 years at this point. So I had a sandbox out on the internet where I could go play and deploy and do anything I wanted. And I thought, you know, this is really fun. So what I did, instead of using a PowerPoint today, I vibe coded. Again, I'm sorry for saying it. I wish there was another term with it. But I did the thing. Maybe I'll call it the shameful moving forward. I did the shameful here. And I said, let me make a presentation about this. And so what I did is I added as a menu item on the actual URL. So from vibe code to production, this is roughly the way, you know, perhaps we'll go really nice and clippable here. I've been building for a long time, QBasic in '99, a whole bunch of different things. I don't know where it got PHP in '04. I don't think I did it in '04 technically. I do have hundreds of projects that I've done, and there's over 150 that are up right now that I'm managing. The whole premise is, what if I started with an empty folder and did nothing else? So this is just someone who's maybe made a Facebook account before, someone who's managed a LinkedIn group, is almost more advanced than is necessary to work in this environment once you get it set up. Said, okay, so the result is nubex.com. So what I did is I took this box and I put in all of the provisioning tools that I would need as a system admin to be able to have the padded bumper room where you can play with something. But this is the padded bumper room that's actually on the wild, wild west known as the internet. So you can build anything you want up to and including a SaaS product, e-commerce, a website. It's like a Wix on steroids on this environment because you're not limited to just conceptually, for anyone who hasn't been deep in programming, what is just so weird right now is the line between what you can just say I want and what can be built isn't now defined by templates. It's defined by a project scope. So the more you can detail what it is, now these language models are so effective at coding and guardrails that someone with a deep understanding of something but not coding can in real time say, no, I mean it like this. No, I mean it like this. And by this time next month, I'll have the feature where you can actually just do this right on a website without loading an editor. But anyway, that's sort of the environment where it's literally, to go back to the putzing around to begin with, literally in here, right, pressing 1 reflexively. Show of hands, who cringes when I just hit 1 or 2 automatically? Okay, I'm seeing some reactions. Maybe they don't find it as offensive as it is. However, yeah, anyway, so basically from there. Okay, so it's not a sacred priesthood class of engineer now that can build sophisticated things. What I just demonstrated isn't a testament to the pinnacle of engineering, nor is it, shall I say, fair to say, look at me, I made something cool. It's fine I made something neat. What was neat about it was that it was basically a hello world that was more like an NES game than like a hello world with a little winky face to see if I'm touching the internet. So even if you are technical, there's a heavy reward for using this process now because, for example, there are differences between database solutions, and that can matter. And so I can provision Postgres and MySQL natively, and I can build out whatever we want for infrastructure. However, you know, there's different projects that will lend themselves to these different things. So coming up with that good architecture first, I think that's all good engineering starts with a good problem statement. That's still true. The iterating relentlessly, I think, is enormously valuable. A lot of times in projects, maybe even a year or 2 ago, the gating item on feedback loop from bug and feature request to reworking to deployment was always sometimes a week or month-long process, depending on how that process went. Now it's feedback or bug goes to system, which iterates, saves version, reloads, and then in that same session, you can do 10 to 100 cycles of revisions. So what I would say is to play to the strengths of code prompt engineering now, keep it small, keep it tight, and keep iterating. Like one of the best practices that I have on the projects I work on is I have a little nickname for the little settings persona that I have. I call it Forge. I go, okay, Forge, run it. And when I say that, it takes a look at everything that's going on. It gives me a little status report. We start doing what we're going to do. At the end, I say wrap it. And what it does is it writes everything that happened, commits it to a Git repo that's private, so that way I can look at it later, and then the session is done. And then when we go back, everything's all neatly packaged so we know where we're going. And then when you do, and then we push to production, and then you can test it. And it's got an SSL, and it's got like the live environment, so it's like a real like safety off version of Wix. You can just build the whatever. So yeah, so that's where my idea for, so that's the demo part. The product here is BigTB.ai. So BigTB.com has been my software company for the last 5 years. And we now offer hosting. So basically starting at 99 bucks a month, we'll do the database, up to 50 gig of storage, plenty of room for a new or aspiring project. Think about it like if, you know, Wix and Squarespace do certain things at the $50 to $100 a month, this $100 a month entry point is like a website plus. And you might think, well, that's neat, but tell me more about what it is. That's great. Let me show you on the, oh, nope. I put it up here on my sneaky navigation. It's incredible what you can do by just talking to robots now. If I, oh, there's a new screen. Okay, so who would this be good for? That's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. I started off this morning fighting with a Claude bot trying to get it to make me a PowerPoint. And then I realized it was good at making websites, so let's just make a website. They got Wi-Fi here, and this is the reason why we arrive at this solution. Plus, I thought the screen was cool. So, we've got Maria. She's got a business in Henderson. She likes grooming dogs. She wants to book appointments with clients and schedule appointments without calling. All right, okay, so there's a business. They have a thing. Opens Claude. Boom. Says, I need a booking page. I need my thing. Here's the whatever. Baked in on the files that we give somebody when they start a project, we've got a project wizard where you can start off just talking to it at this level of technicality, so you don't have to go all the way to what's my database environment, because, for example, it already knows that on our hosting we provide MySQL and Postgres, and between those two it covers 99.9% of what you might want, and also has local file storage, and it has documentation about how to set up your files and use everything, so you don't have to think about that. You can just say, I want to add this feature, I want to build this thing, I want to make this social media website, I want to make this accounting software, I want to make a jukebox with oldies playing on it. Whatever it is, the gating item here is largely at this point getting folks into a textual relationship with the language model, and this is the cleanest way to do that. So here's the thing. So they go back and forth, they figure it out, they do the settings. So if you think about this, so I love WordPress, I still do, but I love it the way that I'm loving an X that I'm not as into as I once was. Because while WordPress has many positive qualities, the ease of being able to have a customer update their website is unmet by this, because you can just have a client that's got a portal where it says do this, and it can literally look at the code, get the changes ready for you, and approve it. Or most of the time just do it and do a good job, and along the way also do its own Git versioning, so this way you can always roll back by just talking to it. So basically 20 minutes after she starts talking to this thing, she's got it looking just right locally. She says, okay, push it up, it's on the internet, now it's live. On our hosting, we also include email services and everything that you would need to have fully operational, whatever it is, which includes the transactional email. Do not use it for spam, or bad things may happen. We have AI robots that can read the messages too. No funny business. We run a respectable engineering. It's nice enough, we'll let you break it. Don't do anything dirtier than that. And so, yeah, so in the environment before this, like, then she'd have to go find an AWS engineer to figure out how to stack this. AWS, yes, they're a competitor, and I'm like nobody, and they're like a household brand, and they're awesome. I'm not taking it away from them. But their process is bullshit for somebody who wants to start something, because it involves setting up a bunch of services, and you have to basically be an engineer on AWS to get there. Everything we're doing is fully modular and scalable, both with us and externally. Like, one of the coolest things about basically the way that we're dealing with it is we can pick up in the middle of a project, and since you're already on our stack and you're already on our hardware, like, you've instantly got engineers available that understand what you're working on, because this is what we're playing with on a day-to-day basis with our own stuff. So you'd be just another file in a folder, basically, in terms of novelty of trying to solve the problem. And we've been, in my biased opinion, again, biased, sort of leading the pack on this, doing some pretty expansive projects pretty quick. And with this sort of way of framing it, now the gating item to someone making something interesting isn't, do I know how to code? It's, can I literally just structure this in words in a way that makes sense? So yeah, and then that's pretty much it. So to recap, about 10 days ago, I was like, what if I gave the robots keys to the servers that I use? Can they ship something that's workable? Then I found out the answer is yes. And then I found out, because I sandboxed it, if anybody wants that, the barrier of entry on a SaaS product isn't talking to an engineer or $5,000, it's $100 in an afternoon. So with that, if anybody would like to applaud, now is a good time to do that. Thank you, thank you. So I know there's a lot of exciting things going on. I also don't know what everybody here is thinking. I'm going to introduce Brendan at this point, and he's going to come up and say hello, because he's been working with me pretty aggressively on a lot of this stuff. For example, I first trusted him with keys to a server before I trusted robots with keys to a server, and it helped me understand how to organize and structure what it is. It was the first time I asked a robot to manage multiple instances of websites. So Brendan, anything you'd like to share on this, or anything we've been talking about here?
I don't know. Pretty extensive, everything you've already said, but hi guys.
So does anybody have any questions about anything? And you can say, no, that was all too much and I wish it had stopped earlier, or perhaps you're saying it was all answered so well, or maybe you have a question that's otherwise unrelated, but you have in front of you two guys that have played with AI very aggressively for quite a while here. All right, Brendan, if you'd.
No, I can shout.
Oh, no, you can't. No, I'm going to go. Give me the talking stick.
Do you want the talking stick or do you want the amplifier?
I want the talking stick.
Okay, there's that.
I am now mobile and Brendan is stable. Okay, okay. Now I can share the talking stick and wander. Now the viewers at home will be able to hear. This is why we enforce the talking stick Nazi-ness.
Can you hear me?
So that's one going to YouTube.
Oh, got it. Is this all web-based, browser-based, or can you build things for the app stores, Google Play, Apple's App Store?
Can you say that louder?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah, so
I didn't want to go loud because
yeah.
I don't want to blast.
The question is, can you build for app stores like Google and Apple as well? And I'm sure Brendan will know more about this, but to warm him up for it, the environment that we have includes the hosting and storage. You can work on, in theory, any sort of project on it, but deployment was where it will get different with those. So I think with Android, you can compile it and run it as an unauthorized app, but then you'd have to go through their process. Brendan knows more about this than I do.
Well, sure. So my experience with mobile dev is very limited. I haven't done that much of it myself. This is all up on a server. So the short answer is right now it's just web. But the long answer is I don't see why it couldn't be more. Slightly longer.
I mean, this is a 10-day-old project. Give us 3 days. We could adapt it for anything. Like, the heaviest part on this is we're saying we have these models that can do such interesting things, but what if they break shit? And so I put it in a padded room where it can connect with the rest of the internet, like putting a difficult animal outside for the night and letting it calm down, except for it's in a space where you can put it in a live production. So for example, you could use demo keys and stuff and get your software business going. You say, well, if I'm taking credit cards, I want to actually make sure that I'm testing to make sure it's secure. Now you're going to an engineer saying, hey, look this over, it's almost done. Can you do a security audit? And now you're getting something out the door and secure for like 1/10 of what it would have been. So sort of across the board, what I'm noticing anyway is this is a force multiplier that reduces costs quite a bit. So things that might have been $100,000 to build 2 years ago might be $10,000 now to put back of the napkin on it. Like just, for example, I can bill more on a daily basis now than I could 2 years ago, and I can deliver 3 to 5 times as much. So the whole equation is working way better over here anyway.
Yeah, but also to close the loop on the whole question about mobile apps, because you know that even if you can get all of the code ready and everything compiled, everything working, all of this is happening up on a server, and ultimately it all still has to go through the gatekeepers of Apple and Google anyway. So whatever processes that you think that you're going to be able to automate, there's still going to be that last hurdle that still has to be done manually, still has to be submitted for approval and all of that stuff. I don't know if that's going to be the way it is forever, but...
Well, there's certain parts of it that can stay on, certain parts of it would remain on your servers, right? A lot of the back end.
Well, yeah, the back-end services, definitely.
But maybe, I'm just throwing this out as somebody developing in mobile. Some sort of...
I mean, yeah, to sort of wrap it just conceptually, ultimately whatever you have going on your desktop that you're building is a file structure that would need to go somewhere. And so by having it on this hosting, it lets you take a look at that whole code base in a very efficient way. So this way you can have a live web version of it, or you can have it ready to go. For example, like I think I tried to get an Apple app in and it wanted like image files resized for 7 different screens or something like that. Something very tedious and pedantic. One, I would try to have a robot do it at this point. But 2, at that point, like they're accepting it. So I think it'll get you all the way to that process just fine. So you can do it as part of that pipeline to go even directly to submit it to the store.
Yeah, if they just output 2 files, one specifically for submission to Apple and one specifically to Google, that would be, and then everything else, all of the back end, everything sort of remained on your platform. That would be a great advantage to the current AWS structure.
Yeah. Oh, well, no. We're taken away from AWS. We don't need them anymore. That's your abusive husband that charges you too much. All right, Doe, speaking of, I get.
Yeah, so I have a question. I'm going to change directions on you guys a little bit. But this is more about, I guess, your business model itself, like Nubex. You're going to allow people effectively to upload arbitrary files to your servers. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you at all liable for the things they put up there?
No, sir.
How is that true?
Because we are a provider of the hosting space. If there's abuse reported, we can and will comply with that. And in addition to that, as you may have noticed, there are a lot of AI tools we can use to proactively look through accounts for behavior that we think might. Think about it as putting the North Star being, if it doesn't help somebody grow a seemingly otherwise lawful business, and if it's not like organic looking, then flag it, unless it's like, certain categories of things that we're just going to knock and then sort of self-report. So think about it like there will be we're not committing to it, but like we will have access to be able to look through everything. And so we have every interest in remaining record keeping for things that could help get victims justice, that kind of thing.
Okay. I was actually going a different direction with it, like malware hosting, for example, or the fact that you're on shared hosting. I assume everyone's sort of like they're co-located probably on the file system, right?
Yeah, so from a technical perspective, these are provisioned accounts on a web server that have limits on CPU, RAM, and disk usage, and it monitors bandwidth. And think that generally, because we're hosting a bunch of projects, we have an idea what like normal activity looks like, especially for something like this. So like in theory, we should have a good handle on at least the flow of, for example, file structures, changes, traffics, IP addresses. Like we monitor all of that. So if we're seeing like a lot of stuff from like one IP address or some weird looking traffic or whatever, like we do have that back of the TV access to be able to proactively and silently look for it. And also fix bad code, which we expect to be the more common problem with such unrestricted access.
Is there any danger of your IP addresses getting banned because of, something going on there?
Look, there's a risk. That's why we don't want to keep any funny business on our server. That's for other servers. This is a proper development lab where we don't have to worry about breaking things. We do have to worry about breaking laws. We don't want to do that. But yeah.
But also broadly, I mean, that's more of a question of just running a business where you're hosting someone else's code in general, right? So the only real difference between this and anything else would be that the code is also made on the very server that it deploys from.
Well, no, there is a difference.
You don't have the talking stick. I wanted one sip of one Pepsi. This man's like, it's not enough calories. Get over here, you fat piece of... Hey, Doe, speaking of.
Yeah, no, the difference is that historically now, it wasn't just average people being able to deploy to prod. Now you're allowing just anyone to be able to deploy, and they may not know any better, right? So there's part of the gatekeeping is gone.
Yes.
In this model.
Oh, I'll reiterate, I forget to say it sometimes. So my company, BigTB, so this is BigTB.com, that's the company for a while. BigTB.ai is this product offering. The mission of BigTB is to democratize access to information, technology, and opportunity. It's something I say a lot, something that's important to me. Part of why I've had a better life than anyone else ever in my bloodline is I was bright enough and I was in front of computers early enough where I was able to make a buck at it and have a pretty decent career doing interesting things. So I would like to make money. I have a certain amount I need to make. It's a relatively modest number. However, the mission is to democratize access to information, technology, and opportunity. So when I say that this is one of the things I'm the most proud of, I want to be very clear. This is a sandbox I can give anybody with $100 where they can build a wide variety of things in a sandbox that's optimized for saying all of the things that Dove's worried about. Like, yeah, people could write malware and we'll have to deal with that. That's a part of being a host on this. But at $100 a month, this isn't cheap hosting. And the other thing is we can scale. I save about 90% on my hosting costs because I don't use Amazon. So we can actually charge a pretty good margin on hosting, and we're managing it well. And a lot of the annoying parts about managed hosting is keeping backups of things. We're telling people this is a sandbox where you can break things. We're not keeping copies of the things you're breaking. When you're done breaking them, we can make copies of the things that they're saving. And fact of the matter is we're storing everything on a Git repo that's private anyway, so we can always go back. We haven't never lost anything, but we can keep testing. So this is giving that semi-technical user that can at least get to the IDE of Cursor or VS Code, or to be perfectly honest, the way Claude Code is set up now, you could literally just have someone at a local device able to access command line, just open a terminal, and then we could get them all the way from a terminal to navigating their project to deployment. So that's the technical arc of it. All that to wrap by saying I'm really excited about the projects we're developing now. This is certainly a stage of engineering where we've made better tools to make better tools. And I don't know how many making better tools loops we're going down before we reach anything approaching a plateau. But as another thing I say quite a bit is I can't even see the edge of the map from here. And that is my presentation on Nubex. All right, fun part about Tech Alley isn't just the great presentations, although they're great. It's the fact that there's other people here who you want to talk to, or maybe you want to have more conversations with people who are still here. So I know it's very busy and very exciting, and there's a lot of good sessions, but at the end of every Tech Alley demo time, we just have open chat. So I release you to the wild of enjoying each other's company, and thank you for coming today. It's always a pleasure.